Sometimes simple toys are best. They allow a child to use their imagination to create their own stories. What will their imagination conceive of with a house, fence, car, pickup truck, a barn, tractor, and wagon, plus lots of animals and some boys and girls to work and play on the farm? I'll show you how to create that playset with some wood, a drill, and a scroll saw. This project is similar to the pony stable set I made not long ago. Many of the parts will be cut from poplar as I plan to paint them. I use poplar for items I plan to paint because it's plain looking on its own and it takes paint nicely. I'm using a number 5 Pegasus modified geometry blade for the 1/2-inch poplar. A number 3 would work, but the patterns are all simple and I don't need the smaller size for details, and the number 5 will be faster. I base my blade size choice on the hardness and thickness of the wood, plus the complexity of the pattern. The first two parts are rectangles and very easy to cut. They will be sides for the barn, as you'll see later. I'll cut them the easy way, starting by cutting across the ends so the pieces are then cross-cut to find the length. With that done, I'll make the rip cuts that will cut the rectangles to width. The scroll saw isn't the best tool for making long, straight cuts, but these parts are on the small side for cutting safely on the table saw. But for these parts, tiny variations in the side aren't a problem. I'm not cutting these parts in any particular order. I grab the next item off the stack and then cut it. These are 1/4-inch thick rectangles with rounded corners, and they'll become the shutters on the farmhouse. I'd typically use a number 3 blade for 1/4-inch material, but these are such simple parts I can cut them with a number 5. If they had a lot of detail, I would have switched to a number 3 blade and or slowed down the motor speed. The barn is constructed with 2 ends, 2 sides, and 2 roof sections. This is one of the ends made from 3/4 poplar. I'm doing this voiceover several days after actually cutting it, so I don't know for sure what size blade I used, but I know it was either a number 7 or a number 9. You may use whatever size works best for you, but for simple patterns, I usually use a larger blade because it cuts faster. I found some more 1/4-inch parts, and these had some inside cuts, so I switched to a number 3 blade. These are sides for a wagon, and I made the interior cuts first, as usual. These interior cuts are small rectangles with curved corners, making them easy enough for even a beginner to create on a scroll saw. The exterior cuts for the 2 wagon sides are also rectangles with rounded corners, so it didn't take long to make these 2 parts. The next part is a bit challenging. This will represent some greenery growing up in front of the house. As you can see, there are continuous twists and turns. I have enough experience to be comfortable cutting these with the saw at full speed, but you may want to slow the blade down, assuming you have a variable speed saw. The faster the blade speed, the more aggressively it cuts, so at full speed it may be challenging to control these tight curves. But keep in mind that if you're a little off on this cut, no one will know, as long as the shape you cut looks like tall grass or leaves. The boys and girls have movable arms cut from 1/4-inch poplar. The hole near one end is for a dowel rod to be inserted that will attach the arms to the body and allow them to be moved up and down. I think it's a clever design that adds extra detail to the set. The boys and girls have ingenious assemblies for their legs. Like their arms, these pieces attach with a dowel that allows the legs to move back and forth. I can imagine a child playing with this set for hours, moving the boys, girls, and animals around the farm. Oh yes, there are plenty of animals. We'll get to cutting them soon. The dotted lines indicate where to later drill holes for connecting accessories to the front or back of the tractor and to either side of the wagon. I'll be painting the tractor John Deere green. Their corporate headquarters are located in Moline, Illinois, about 100 miles west of where I live and work. You rarely see anything but John Deere tractors, combines, and other equipment on local farms. Most families around here have John Deere lawn tractors, and the young man I pay to mow my large lot uses, you guessed it, a John Deere mower. The local Ace Hardware store carries spray paint in John Deere green and yellow, making it easy to buy more paint whenever I build a batch of farm toys. The tractor and wagon are both easy cuts. Just take your time and let the blade do the work. I know I've said this before, but I'll continue to say it from time to time because it's the best scroll saw advice I can give. This craft takes time and patience, which seems to be in short supply these days. I know that perhaps my biggest fault when scrolling is pushing the workpiece too hard to try to speed up the process. Believe me, it doesn't work. There are some animals on one side of this board, but I'm going to set it aside to continue cutting the other vehicles first. I'll come back to the animals soon enough. No farm would be complete without a pickup truck and a car for family outings. These are both easy cuts as well. Just take your time and enjoy the process. I'll probably paint these two vehicles red to add some bright color to the whole scene. Pickup trucks are another common sight here in rural areas like this. Now I have some animals to cut, and these sheep are cut from 3/4 poplar so I can paint them white. I can imagine a child who's given this set playing with it for hours, using their imagination to create stories involving the farm and animals. Of course, you need people to manage the farm, and this set includes several girls and boys. Their bodies are cut from 3/4-inch poplar and their arms and legs from 1/4-inch stock. I'll paint these later. Another way to add more color to the set. The boys and girls are not quite as simple to cut as the animals, but even a beginner should be able to cut these as long as you take your time. I'm using a number 9 blade because I tend to use the largest blade possible, but for most scrollers, a number 7 would likely be a better choice. If you have a variable speed saw, slowing it down will also help keep the blade as easy to control as possible. The faster the speed, the more aggressive the blade cuts, and the harder it is to control. Returning to the pile of items that still need to be cut, I found some 3/4 walnut. I'll use it to make some dogs and cows. These are easy cutouts, and I'm happy to sit and cut animals like this for hours at a time. I'll finish the animals that aren't painted with a child-safe mineral oil. I'll apply it to one side with a foam brush, let that dry, and then flip them over and finish the second side. The oil brings out the color and beauty of the wood grain, and it also provides some protection. I think it's a perfect finish for toys like this. It's time to start assembly. The sides and roofs of the house and barn will be painted different colors, so they must be assembled in stages. I'll start with the house. After taking a quick look at the plans to ensure I had the correct part relationships in mind, I set them in place on the bench top, which is covered with a rubber pad. There are 2 ends, a front and a back, to the house. The front has 2 windows and a doorway, and the back is simply a low wall that serves as a spacer, allowing the child access to the house's interior. Glues today are pretty strong, and no fancy joinery is needed to assemble the house. A butt joint will be strong enough to hold up all but very rough play. The wood is more likely to break in a weak spot than a glue joint is. I added white glue to the ends of the boards where needed, and I used a fingertip to spread it out evenly. Once I had all the pieces in place, I went to the clamp rack behind me and grabbed 3 F-clamps. I placed 2 on the front side of the house and just 1 on the back, since that wall is so narrow. With the clamps in place and tightened sufficiently, I moved the house out of the way to leave room for more assembly. Assembling the barn is a similar process, but there are only low walls on either side. At this stage of the process, you'll understand why most woodworkers say you can never have too many clamps. If you run out of clamps at this point, you'll have to wait for the glue to dry on the first project before you can clamp the second project. I've been accumulating clamps a few at a time for many years, so I rarely, if ever, run out of clamps anymore. Some vehicular assembly is also required for this project. As you can probably see, I broke out the instructions at this point. I purchased these plans from toymakingplans.com, and they always do a good job of providing assembly diagrams when needed. This wagon has a main body, a platform on top, and 2 sides. I spread some glue where the platform is going to go and then put it in place. Then I spread a bead of glue on the bottom of each side and put them in place. In my experience, you don't need clamps for assemblies like these. Gravity is all that's required. The car will take 1.5-inch wheels, and it has little fenders behind them. I've learned the hard way that it's not a good idea to eyeball the placement of parts like these. I don't know how many times I had to remake a part after I glued it in what looked like the right place, but which turned out to prevent the wheel from rotating properly. Do yourself a favor and make sure the wheels can turn properly before you glue on fenders or any other parts near the wheels. I painted the barn, house, and roofs for both, and I glued and clamped the roof onto the barn. The house has some details that need to be added to the front before I can add the roof. I'll start with the greenery, which you may recall me cutting from quarter-inch poplar. I painted the piece green using a small brush and acrylic paint, and now I'll add a bead of glue to the back. I added several spring clamps to hold this in place while the glue dries. While I have the house sitting on its back in my finishing room, I'll glue the shutters in place. I painted those red to give a bright splash of color against the yellow house. These would be difficult to clamp, but I know from experience that just adding glue and setting them in place works, so that's what I'll do. I'd like to add some additional advice on painting and assembling here. I will glue unfinished items in my woodshop area, but once an item has been painted, I complete assembly, as I did here, in my finishing room. This room is at the other end of the basement, as far away from the woodshop as possible. Sawdust on a workbench can be just as damaging as sandpaper, and it can easily scratch a finished piece. Keep the two operations as far apart as you can. There were no difficult parts to cut for this project, so it's within the capabilities of even a beginner on the scroll saw. You will need some patience because of the number of parts required if you follow the plans exactly, or you could make less animals if you wished. No matter how many animals you include, this set will keep a child busy for many hours of imaginative play. Thanks for joining me on this barnyard adventure. I consider myself fortunate to pass by so many animals and fields every day on my way to my store. If you've enjoyed watching me build this set, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you have a suggestion for a project you'd like to see, please leave that in the comments. This channel is here to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain.